The team of archaeologists led by Dr. Corinne Hoffman, the Dean of Archaeology at Leiden University, the Netherlands, is currently building 2 experimental houses at Argyle with a view to assisting with the complete reconstruction of the Cayo or island Carib village. The island Caribs are the ancestors of the black Caribs, who we now refer to as the Garifuna people. This follows earlier findings from excavations done on the site in 2009 and 2010, which provided concrete proof that the Caribs lived in a community on this site. Some of the artifacts found then included aired axes, pottery, and colonial beads. It was also noted that it was the first of its kind found in the Lesser Antilles. The International Airport Development Company had pledged its commitment to protecting our cultural heritage and so made available the land for the excavations, which it also funded. On Tuesday, January 26, 2016, several ministers of government along with members of the committee spearheading the restoration visited the site and spoke to the media about the project. Minister of Tourism Cecil Mackey, under whose ministry the project falls, noted that they are trying to have the village completed to coincide with the opening of the Argyle International Airport.
So they're here for 2 weeks, so we're going to push as much work as possible. Local persons into construction will get that experience of what is required, because as you can see from the work site, we're using fresh lumber from the forest in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and the forestry department, they are identifying where we could get such material and also helping in the construction. So once we have the necessary material, we'll then as you can see, material, most of it is on spot. They have to shave the lumber to get off the skin, and then they use them for the various poles. And then we are using local grass to do the roof, and therefore all of the material would be available locally. One of the things that will bring us to therefore is that we have to ensure that there is an abundance of this material, because the site will have to be refreshed as often as possible. So we are guaranteeing that there would be that supply. And of course, upon the completion of the major aspect of the project, which is the 5 smaller huts and the larger hut, we'd also have additional areas where we can do more or less additional activities on the site, because we have to have things on offer here at the site. It will be enclosed, fence around, so it will be a controlled and managed area. What we have hope to have is items produced by our indigenous people, all of the wonderful tasty foods that they have been doing over the years. So we'll have a site not in the village itself, but just off of the village, where such foods will be produced and made available for eating. And we hope to have different craft items, art items that we can have on display for purchase as well on the site here. So it will be a complete village where you would have light entertainment, and you would also have other items to eat and drink. So it's going to be a wonderful area, and it's going to add in a significant way to the tourism cultural sites that we have on offer here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
It is the first Carib village ever found in the Caribbean, in the Lesser Antilles, and we have been able, thanks to the collaborations here in St. Vincent of the different ministries, and of course the International Airport Development Company, to excavate the village completely. We have been finding 11 houses, round houses, and 2 oval houses, of which we now aim to reconstruct 5 smaller round houses and 1 large oval house, a house which will have a length of 12 meters and which will be located down the slope. So my colleague here next to me, Dr. Hoagland, will tell you more about the reconstruction we are doing at this moment. It's an experimental construction of a roundhouse, meaning that we aim to use also stone tools and shell tools to work the wood. Again, before I'm passing the microphone here to my colleague, I would like to stress the importance of this site, which can be dated to the 16th century, meaning that the Kalinago, the Carib who lived here, were the first to get in contact with the European colonizers in the region and, of course, the African people.
Archaeologist Dr. Mena Hoogland spoke of the ultimate challenge of an archaeologist, which is to reconstruct what they have found in the ground.
The location of the post holes, that is the information we get from archaeology, but what is above the ground, that is for archaeologists much more difficult. Luckily there are two very important sources, and one source is the historical sources, the written sources, and there is a very rich dictionary by Raymond Breton from the 17th century, and he was a missionary in Dominica amongst the Caribs of the islands. He made a very good description of how the man's house, how the tabui was built. He gives a general description of the mana, and that is why we are first trying out to build a mana and to get the experience how the construction would be like of that house. The second important source is local knowledge. Since we don't know exactly the kind of wood, since it is described in more general terms, we don't know the material which was used for binding, except they are talking about lianes, and we don't know the material for roofing. In the dictionary it is described by leaves of palm leaves or grass or reed, a more general term. This afternoon I figured out that the word roseau, which is in the dictionary, is also known by local people, so the personnel of forestry can for sure help with the reconstruction and the choice of the right material.
And the entire project is expected to contribute significantly to the education of students across St. Vincent and the Grenadines, as pointed out by Minister of Education, St. Clair Jimmy Prince.
Well, in 2010, when I came here for the excavation, I was very excited that a very important part of our history had been uncovered. We have in St. Vincent and the Grenadines a deficit in our learning and our teaching of history. And a lot of Vincentians don't know a lot about the history of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. As a matter of fact, written history of St. Vincent and the Grenadines is very short and very scant. Therefore, this project is absolutely important. I hope that as Minister of Education, I'm hoping that the students of the various secondary schools and primary schools too would take advantage of this site, would come here to do research, etc. My own constituency of Maricoa, we're just walking distance away from here. I'm hoping that these schools would take advantage and come down to Argyle to see what is happening. We are trying, from a government standpoint, to put a new emphasis on history, the teaching of history in schools, particularly in the secondary schools, and this is going to be a very important part of this process. It is also fitting that it is interesting that this site is alongside the International Airport. So we have our history, part of our history, and part of our future lying side by side. And this, I think, it augurs well for our tourism and for our own development and for our knowledge of our history here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So I hope that Vincentians will take the opportunity to visit the site, and I thank the persons responsible for the restoration, for the reconstruction, for what they have done so far. Thank you.
Area Representative Frederick Stevenson spoke of the benefits to be gained by his constituents from having the restored site operating in their community.
This Argyle site has long been a very important site for St. Vincent and the Grenadines and for the people of this community. Many years ago, this land produced most of all the peanuts and the agricultural produce produced in this area, and provided work and income for the people who lived in Pureven Vale, in Baibu and Calder and the surrounding areas. Argyle was also the site of many parties, and so people are accustomed to what Argyle is all about. Today we are here, as you heard, constructing a new constructing the Cayo village, and this would also add to the tourism development for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and also would create some employment for the persons who live closest here. It is exciting times for St. Vincent and the Grenadines as we look on and we see the final touches being put in place on the international airport here at Argyle, and we look forward very soon to the commencement of operations. I look forward to see this area fully developed and to ensure that all the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the youngsters, the not so young, the elderly, would come here to see what is happening, to enjoy and be a part of the continued development of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and here at Argyle. There's tremendous continued work for development. We know that in and around this area we'd have opportunities for hotel development, and that would also add to the aesthetics of what would soon become the most beautiful and picturesque airport in the English-speaking Caribbean. I've traveled to many of the other airports in our region, and from all reports you get that Argyle is nestled in the valley of the mountain ranges between the Mesopotamia Valley and this Mount Pleasant Hill, and it's a beautiful site. And so with these development and these advancement, we would ensure that St. Vincent and the Grenadines, another aspect of our tourism development, as you heard the minister quite rightly spoke, would lend itself to a lot of persons coming to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So I'm very enthused. I'm happy that we have Dr. Hoffman back with us and her husband and the team. And I know I remember when I visited here in 2010, when they were here, that the prospects of developing and reconstructing this village was part of what we said that we want to do. So I'm happy that they're here this afternoon. I'm happy for the collaboration between the IADC and our friends from Leiden University, and I hope that the local personnel who would be here working on these 5 or 6 buildings in the next couple of weeks would add to our own development and our advancement.
Returning Nationals SVG, a local group that has already contributed significantly to the restoration of the village, also came in for recognition.
I must say that though the IADC, the International Airport Development Company, has made the lands available for the reconstruction, well, first of all for the excavation and now the reconstruction of this village, the IADC will continue to do all that it can do to assist with this reconstruction. There is a group of persons that I would like to mention. You must have heard by now about the Returning Nationals SVG, who would have made significant contributions financially to the construction of the Argyle International Airport. They would have made a significant contribution already towards the reconstruction of this Cayo village. More monies we know will be needed to complete this reconstruction, but just to note that they have already made a significant contribution of $150,000 towards this reconstruction, and I am sure if given the opportunity they will do more fundraisers to contribute, though we know that more sources of funding would need to be sought.